Hi everyone, it's Christine, and today we are going to learn how to lacto ferment cucumbers. So essentially create pickles. Two books that I want to start by recommending are Fermenting Vegetables. It looks like this, maybe backwards to you guys. It's by Kirsten and Christopher Shockey. It's a really great reference book. They go through vegetable by vegetable and tell you what you can ferment, how you can ferment it. If you really want to learn how to make sauerkraut, there are cabbage kraut recipes and beet kraut recipes, carrot kraut recipes, everything in here, but they also just go over the basics of making fermentations with vegetables, kimchis, chutneys. They also tell you how to take your fermented cucumbers if you want and turn it into a relish. They have a lot of recipes for sauces, so not only how to do it, but actually how you're going to want to use these ingredients in your everyday cooking. It's a great reference book. I highly recommend it. The other book that I've learned a ton from is the Noma Guide to Fermentation. I wouldn't recommend it to somebody who is just toying around with a little bit of fermentation here or there. I find it is quite easy to read, but it's very extensive and it goes beyond your very basic fermenting skills. It gives you some strategies and some specific things that you might want to try that they have tried. It's just a really encouraging reference to have on your shelf if you're somebody like me who likes to try lots of new things and get creative every once in a while with a lot of the natural things that we grow. We grow a lot of the same things here where I am as they do in Denmark. So it allows me to have a good resource of things that we use. So I'm going to show you how easy this is. It sounds complicated, but I did it for the first time last year. The only thing different that I'm doing this time is I'm using these store-bought mini cucumbers. So last time I used local pickling cucumbers, which have a bit of a thicker skin. So I'm a little bit concerned that these aren't gonna pickle quite as nicely, but at least we know they won't be bitter. The skin's very, very mild. My main concern is that they're gonna be mushy. To prevent that, I'm gonna throw just a couple tea leaves in each of the containers because it will offer a little bit of extra tannins into the water, and tannins are actually what you need to keep your pickles crisp. In the summertime, I use grape leaves because my neighbors have grapevines, so they're easily accessible to me. Grape leaves are very high in tannins as well, as are bay leaves. So if you can get your hand on fresh or dried bay leaves, they would actually work very well. All right, let's get started. So lacto fermenting is actually really easy. You need the vegetable that you're going to ferment. So today for me, it's gonna be these cucumbers. You need pickling salt. So pickling salt can be pickling salt that you pick up from the grocery store. It can be sea salt, it can be Himalayan salt. What it can't be is iodized table salt. You cannot use iodized salt for pickling. You need water that has been filtered. So I have just some unfiltered water here in my kettle. It's cold, it's just in the kettle because my tap's on the other side of the kitchen. You need the spices that you want to flavor your ferment with. These aren't necessary. You can do it with only salt if that's the only thing you want to do. You're going to need a kitchen scale. You're going to need a jar of some sort or a crock. I prefer jars. It lets me watch my ferment so that I know what it's doing. I know if there's any mold or anything that's going wrong with it. You also need something to weigh down your ferment. I use these mason tops. I have them in the wide mouth and the standard mouth. Today we're using a wide mouth, and they just will set right down in here on top of everything once we have our stuff in there to keep everything submerged, which is really important. And you need some sort of lid that will allow your ferment to burp. These have tiny little flaps on them. This is a Ball brand fermentation lid. You can get the ones that have those big fancy water burpers on them. You can get, I think they're called pickle lids, that are just plastic and they have a little nub on them that will let the air escape. I've had really good luck with this system, so I don't want to mess with it. But I haven't tried a lot of other things. So if you want to try something differently, that's absolutely fine. It's not a concern. So I'm going to show you what we do first with the cucumbers. The other thing that can make your cucumber ferments mushy is the blossom end. So we know that this is the stem end. It's fine. This is the blossom end. The blossom ends have to come off. So we have to start by cutting off, grab my compost bucket there, cutting off all the blossom ends, making a little pile of our cucumbers. So the basic rule is that you need a 2 to 3% salt brine in order to safely ferment. So there are some vegetables that do better in a stronger brine. Cucumbers are one of them. So I pickle my cucumbers around 2.5% salt. I didn't have any issues with any of my cucumbers going moldy last year until some of the ones that I fermented in July sat in the fridge all year, and I just went to use them the other day. It was April, and the grape leaf on top had come out of the water and it had molded. So once that happens, I don't like to mess around because mold could have been through the entire ferment. I did have to dump that 1 bucket of pickles, but there's no need to store them for that length of time if you can use store-bought cucumbers year-round, these cute little mini cucumbers that we grow in greenhouses around where I live all year. I am yet skeptical if these are going to ferment the same as a field pickling cucumber, but we will find out. So I have a few now. I don't know how many are going to fit in these jars. I'm just doing them whole today because it's the end of the day and I would like to go to bed eventually, but I need to check this off my list. Oh, one's trying to roll away there. So you see, I'm just laying my jar down and I'm just kind of fitting the pickles in here. Just seeing how many are actually gonna go in. There may be a cause to cut a few of them in half to get that one extra in. So I might end up doing that because we're not gonna get, if I cut a few in half, I might be able to stick just a couple more at the top. Now the other thing is that I like to leave plenty of room for liquid at the top of the jar as well. If you try to start stuffing your vegetables past your shoulder on your jar, you're definitely gonna have something that pops out of the liquid. And after you put it in the fridge, it's not supposed to mold even if it's out of the liquid, but I can tell you it will stay a lot better if you can keep all those vegetables away from the oxygen under your salted liquid. You are not gonna have as many problems. So there we go. So that was 1 jar. Okay. So I was just kind of seeing to measure what was in there. And we're kind of gonna dump those out because we have to do our process. So you've got your kitchen scale. You got your jar. You're gonna zero it. Okay. We're gonna restuff. So in case my scale turns off, I've made a mental note that we're working at 756 is the jar weight. So I can do some quick, simple math if need be. All right, how are we doing here? That one's kind of gone curvy down to the bottom. There we go. All right, I'm gonna put some of the halves in here, up near the top. Yeah, there we go. And before my scale turns off, we'll put it back on. The weight of the pickles is 862 grams. Now we're gonna fill it with water. This is cold water, it's just in the kettle for transport. That's probably a little bit too much water because once we put our weight in there, it is gonna overflow. So we're gonna just dump a tiny bit of that off. That's good. So our total weight is 1831. I am just going to quickly go and grab a pen and paper. Okay, so we know that we have 1,831 grams in water weight and cucumber weight combined. So we want to do a 3% salt brine. So what we're going to do is 1831 times 0.03. So that gives us 54.93. So I'm going to just round that up to 55. So I need 55 grams of salt in this brine to make a 3% salt brine. I'm going to zero that out. And just using my hand, I'm just going to keep the cucumbers in there. They don't need to come along for the ride. Got a little water on the cucumber. Zero that out. And we are getting there. Oh, 58. So we got a little bit more than I wanted, and there's a little green thing in here, so that's gonna come out. A little piece of cucumber, I'm assuming. So this is actually at 58 grams. Just got a little bit more than 3%. That's okay. And now the pain in the butt thing about coarse pickling salt is you need to get it to dissolve. So that's the most pain in the butt part, is the stirring. I did mean to throw it into my blender and grind it up. I might do that. There's only a little bit left in there. And after, I won't be buying coarse pickling salt again. I will either buy fine sea salt, or I will find fine pickling salt, because the coarse stuff is a bit of a pain. All right, let me see here. Oh, it's good. It's gone anyway. So we're good there. Now, because I'm using dried herbs, they don't have a weight. In the summer when I use big chunks of garlic, or later when I put this onion into one of them, I will also weigh the weight of those herbs. But today I'm not gonna be too concerned about it. I'm gonna dump in, this is garlic dill, dried. This is called Pickles spice. It's a spice that was actually made for fridge pickles. Just a quick pickle, but it's just pickling spice. And then here are my tea leaves. So these are, they smell so good. Those are just green, I think it's called green gunpowder green tea. I'm just gonna grab a little pinch and toss some of those in there. That little guy's gotta get down there so he doesn't pop up over the water. There we go. All right, I've got my salt mixture. Very carefully, it's gonna go back in here. Oh, we're leaking. This bowl may not be the bowl that we stick with. I thought it would be good because it had a little spout, but clearly it's drippy. All right, that's okay though. So, you can see here that my cucumbers are wanting to float up to the top. All the herbs are wanting to float up to the top, and all of that is completely normal. That's what this thing is for. So here's our weight. The nice thing about the grape leaf is at this point, I would put the grape leaf on over top and it would become the first seal. It would push all of the herbs and everything down, and then I would put this on top of the grape leaf. Because I don't have that, I may have some herbs that float up, and that's just gonna have to be how it is. There's gonna be no way to keep all those herbs in there, but we will see how it goes. They are in the salt water. The lid is on. Again, this is a lid with a burper. And now we just set this aside. I'm gonna grab a cloth because I've now made a salty, salty mess. I didn't love how all of that stuff rose to the top of my last jar. So in this jar, I'm going to use red onion. And that's it. I'm gonna use a little bit of red onion in these ones and some tea leaves. So we'll just get our stuff prepped. So I got my red onion. I'm actually gonna weigh these jars. So we got 756, 767. So this one was 756. We're just gonna huck the onion in there. And then on top of that, we're gonna do our cucumbers. I'm gonna need to chop a few more, which is fine. So we're chopping. I don't know if anybody else has ever been curious about lacto fermenting. I'm actually not really sure what made me entirely curious about it either. Part of it was that I hate eating vegetables. I'm not a vegetable fan, but I know that I need to start incorporating some more vegetables into my diet, and I love fermented foods. So I thought, if I could ferment more foods, would I enjoy eating my vegetables? And could I, instead of having a green salad, convince myself to have a side of fermented vegetables with my meal, with my meat? No, I don't know if I like that guy, so cut him in half. And fermented pickles are like nothing that I'd ever tried before. I'd never had, I think people call them sours. Some people call them half sour or full sour. There we go. I think that's kind of what we're gonna do in here. Half sour cucumber is one that has only been pickled for a couple days, and a full sour is about a week, but you can let your ferment go as long as you want. I will probably start tasting mine around day 4 or 5, depending on how they look. So you see there, we've got the onion in the bottom, the cucumbers, water. We're gonna need a little bit more. Alexa, what's 2,485 minus 756?
2,485 minus 756 is 1,729.
So then we do 1,729 times 0.03, and it's 51. So in this batch, we know we need 51 grams. We didn't shove quite as many cucumbers in there because we had the onion at the bottom, and that's perfectly fine. I'm gonna weigh the salt this time first. Okay, we got 51 grams. Now we're gonna dump our water in. Whisk it up. Now I actually have tried to make sauerkraut a few times and I don't think I will ever try again. The smell of fermenting cabbage is something very special, and I can't get past that point of where the cabbage smells disgusting to the point of wanting to eat the product of that. Even if when I made really good kraut, I ate it for a couple days, and after it had sat in the fridge, I wasn't happy with what it was doing. I'm not sure if I was doing something wrong, but it just never really, it didn't strike passion in me. And we have so many great farmers around here who make their own kraut, and they make good kraut, that I've just taken to buying it, and it's something that we probably just won't try to make again. So I'm just, again, gonna throw in a little pinch of tea leaves down the side there. And then try not to make a giant mess as we dump this back in again. Go with the faster is better approach. There we go. We've got our weight one more time. I'm gonna put it, oh, we got one little floater who just kind of wants to be a bit of a pain. So we're gonna try to find him a home. There we go. And put him down over there. Okay. So we've got our weight in. We've got our lid on. And we're gonna set that one aside. Now, I had a great idea for this one. I'm actually gonna do my tea leaves in the bottom first. And this is one of my most favorite spices. Again, it's an epicure spice. It has been discontinued though, from what I understand. It's dried turmeric and black pepper. It's one of my favorite things. We put it on absolutely everything. So epicure, if you're listening to me, please bring this back. So these pickles will be a black pepper turmeric pickle. And now we're gonna go through the exact same process as we did with the other two jars to find out what the 3% is of this jar. So we're now completely finished fermenting our cucumbers. I did slice up the last ones. Again, with this type of cucumber, I'm a little bit wary that maybe they won't stay crisp, especially since I've sliced them and exposed the seeds in the middle. Time will tell. I'm really excited to find out. And the last thing you need to know about lacto fermenting is that these little guys are gonna ferment and they're gonna create gas. That's the idea of this little valve on the top. It's to let the gas go out of this glass jar. If you didn't have a valve that allowed your ferment to burp, essentially your jar would just explode. And the pressure would build up and it would have nowhere to go and you'd end up with pickle juice and glass everywhere. So these little things are a must have. Don't just put a tight lid on to your ferment. It's not going to be good in the end. However, that little valve will also let out a little bit of liquid as the gases escape out of it. So a really good idea is to put it on a cookie tray or a baking sheet, and that will just make sure that any liquid that does come out is caught, and you can go ahead when your ferments are done in 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, however long you want to ferment for. You can put on a lid, a solid lid, to put them in the fridge, and at that time you can give your jars a really good wipe down if you find that they have some salty residue on the outside. But trust me, the baking sheet is going to save you quite a bit of mess. And that's what we do. We wait now, and I'll bring you guys along for the journey when I check them. We'll see if they're crisp. We'll see how many days they take. My kitchen is still a little bit cooler. We're not in summer yet, so I know my ferment is probably going to take a little bit longer. I'm really counting on between 5 and 7 days to get these cucumbers to the point where we want to eat them. All right, that's it for me today. It's time for me to be done for the day, tidy up everything I've got going on. Thanks so much for coming along on this journey. And if you like what you see, please like and subscribe. I think the buttons are down here. I would really appreciate it. Have a good night.